As far as the internet and true crime go, it can be a dangerous place. Far away conspiracy theories mixed with a desire. To see mysteries that are not really there can lead to some wild but well-meaning guesses and ideas. But some cases do need help from unexpected communities to be solved. Join us for today's episode as we examine 3 cases of internet sleuths who help solve cold cases. Donnie Irwin. 59-year-old Donnie Irwin was last seen in southern Camden County, Missouri at around 9:30 on the morning of December 29th, 2013. He was driving his silver 2002 Hyundai Elantra. At the time, Donnie was described as wearing a blue coat, blue jeans, and gray shoes at the time of his disappearance, and it was noted that he was missing his left leg, below the knee, and had a noticeable scar from his left elbow to his wrist. He left the house to buy cigarettes and never returned. For a decade, there was no sign of the Vietnam veteran, and investigators had absolutely nothing in the way of leads or evidence. But answers finally appeared. 10 years later in 2023, when a YouTuber named James Hinkle began investigating the case. Using his drone, he studied nearby bodies of water, looking for the shape of a car underwater. For months, James had been looking for a trace of the 59-year-old, a trained scuba diver. He had taken his kayak out, dived, and used sonar gear in search of the missing man. But no clues appeared. About 9 months after his search began, James finally found what he was looking for when he flew his drone over a pond on private property about 3.5 miles from Donnie's home. There, he noticed a huge shape in the water below, and he then told the authorities about what he found. Shortly after, the authorities pulled a Hyundai out of the pond. Its description and license plate number matched Donnie's. Despite this break in the case, though, there was no sign of the 59-year-old. It would not be until 5 days later on Christmas Eve that teams made up of cadaver dogs and divers found both human remains and an artificial hip, the second of which was found to be a match for Donnie, while investigators announced they would need forensic testing. Before saying 100% that the remains were Donnie's, they were confident that they were. His sister, Yvonne Owen Bowen, wrote on a Facebook page about the news, "I can't lie, this was such an extremely difficult day." Emotionally drained, she later told the New York Times, "It is a new heartbreak. Even though I knew in my heart he was gone, accepting reality is a whole different thing. While it is unclear if Donnie took his own life or died in an accident, his sister believes the first theory is likely the truth, noting that shortly before he vanished, he had learned that he would likely need his second leg amputated. She concluded, "My brother did what he did because he did not want to be a burden on anybody." She added that although she finally knows the truth, she will never have closure. Quote, "People always say that when you find that loved one, you get closure. No, you don't, because you will never understand." Crystal Theobald. In February 2006, Crystal Theobald was killed in Arlanza, California. She was just 24 years old and a mother of 2 children. Her boyfriend had been driving the couple through the 6600 block of Geranium Place that night when a group of men standing near an SUV began shooting at the car. During trial testimony, it came out that the group who shot the car were gang members, and they believed that Crystal, her boyfriend Juan Patlon, and her brother Justin were members of a rival gang. Crystal was shot in the head at point-blank range, while her boyfriend was hit in the midsection. CV footage would later show Justin taking control of the car, driving it to a nearby store, getting out, and holding his sister in his arms while begging for help. Crystal died from her wounds in the hospital too. Days later, while Juan survived after surgery, Justin made it out of the incident physically unharmed. It would later come out that the gang members, who were part of a group called 5150, had been following a vehicle they believed belonged to a rival MD gang member when they got lost. When they saw Juan's car, it looked like the rival gang members, and they assumed it was the same one, causing the attack. After Crystal's death, her mother, Belinda Lane, and younger cousin Jaime decided to take the investigation into their own hands. With Jaime's help, Belinda created 2 fake MySpace accounts, including one that used Crystal's photograph with a different name, hoping to connect with members of 5150 and discover information they could use to put the people responsible behind bars. Before long, Belinda's plan worked when she connected with a gang member named William Sotelo. It turned out that he was the driver of the SUV that night, and the vehicle belonged to him. Belinda then took their conversation to the police, who used the information to bring Sotelo in for an interview. During the questioning, he incriminated Julio Herodia, claiming that he was the man who fired the bullet that killed Crystal. At this stage, however, there was no physical evidence tying Sotelo to the crime scene, so investigators let him go. Frustratingly, he then fled to Mexico and remained on the run for over a decade. He was finally caught in Mexico in 2020, where he was working as a chili farmer after. Belinda found information about him on Facebook and received a tip about his exact location. By the time of his arrest, 2 other gang members had been identified and linked to the murder, a pair of brothers named William and Manuel Lemus. Their testimonies later proved to be very important in convicting Herodia of the murder, though in exchange for their statements, they were not charged in relation to the crime. Herodia was sentenced to life in prison without parole for the murder, while 10 other gang members were tried and convicted in connection with the shooting. They were charged with a variety of crimes, and their sentences ranged from probation to 18 years in prison. Over the years, Belinda was also known to have contacted several potential suspects, and she and Jaime even threatened some of them over the phone. Some of the gang members they spoke with had nothing to do with the crime. In a documentary about the case, Belinda even admitted that at one point she dreamed about getting all the gang members together at a party and shooting them herself. She was so deeply trapped in her grief and anger. Belinda told the media, "I was just a mess. I was just so enraged, angry, sad, and overwhelmed. I just did not even want to live. I just wanted to die." However, she noted it was this anger that drove her search for answers and led her to connect with Sotelo. Without his information, she is not sure how long the police would have taken to find answers in Crystal's case. Cheryl Ann McMillan. On June 8, 1968, the body of a young woman was found in Los Angeles, California. She was slumped over a picnic table near Mount Hollywood Drive, wearing a polka dot, bikini, an overcoat, and a pair of sandals. While she was described as being petite, with bleached blonde hair and well-groomed eyebrows, there was little else for investigators to go on because she carried no ID. The most important lead that police had was that she was believed to be staying at the Hollywoodland Motel in Studio City, and that she may have used the name Cheryl Miller. The biggest piece of evidence recovered from the scene, meanwhile, was a gold wedding ring she was wearing with the inscription CB to age 9/4/20. Jane Doe had died from an apparent drug overdose. Since authorities were never able to confirm her ID, she was labeled Jane Doe 18. In the coming months, investigators followed the few leads they had, but were never able to give her name back to her. For decades, the case remained unsolved. In 2010, noted forensic artist Carl Koppelman came across her image and uploaded a facial reconstruction of Jane Doe 18, or Griffith Park Jane Doe, as she later came to be known. And it was this image that caught the attention of a woman named Rita Ellen Hood in 2016. In July that year, Rita was sitting on her lunch break and scrolling through her Facebook. feed when she saw an edited version of the reconstruction Carl had recently posted. The pair had once worked together and were still Facebook friends years later. And after seeing the image, Rita read about Jane Doe's story. She was interested in the wedding ring the woman was found with and noticed that the date on the ring, September 4th, was her birthday. In the coming weeks, Rita began searching through marriage records on Ancestry.com, looking for people whose initials and dates matched the inscription on Jane Doe's ring. She started by looking up the 10 most popular women's names of the era beginning with E, such as Elizabeth, Ethel, and Edna. She then began looking for these women with last names beginning with J, who married men with the initials CB on September 4th, 1920. For a month, Rita spent her nights looking through the records. Once her children were in bed, she would stay up late, determined to find answers. 4. Weeks after the search began, she found a match. Edna Lydia J. married Charles J. Bush in Detroit on September 4th, 1920. Edna had 2 daughters before she died from a health condition in 1932, aged just 30. A deeper look into her records found that Geraldine Bush, one of her daughters, had married 3 times, the last of which was to a man named John Paul Manzo in 1960. Rita began looking for a John Manzo on social media and came across John Manzo Jr., who was living in California. She sent him a message on September 9th, hoping that he would speak with her so she could figure out whether or not he was related to Geraldine. Several days passed before Rita heard back. On September 11th, John told her that Geraldine was his mother and Edna his grandmother. Rita then asked him if he knew what happened to his grandmother's wedding band, because it was found on the body of a Jane Doe in California, before Rita could even begin. Asking questions, John admitted, "My sister has been missing since 1968. When was your Jane Doe found?" It turned out that John had a half-sister named Cheryl Ann McMillan, who vanished when he was 6 years old and she was 21. John had been terribly fond of Cheryl. He recalled that she took him everywhere she went and cared for him a lot. He remembered the feeling of being loved and cared for. While Cheryl was the child of Geraldine's first marriage, she was adopted by their mother's second husband. She graduated from Campbell High School in 1964 and then moved to LA, where the family lost contact with her. At one point, Geraldine hired a PI to search for her, and while he was able to track her down, she reportedly told him, "Leave me alone. Tell them I'm fine." All the family knew was that she had become involved in drugs and had dated a man with the last name Miller. Cheryl was scheduled to be a maid of honor in her cousin's wedding on June 22nd. The cousin, Ellen Saval, would later tell reporters that Cheryl did not show up to the dress fitting, but that she called shortly afterward to assure her that she would be there on the day itself. However, she never made it. Unknown to the family, her body had already been found by investigators weeks earlier. John told the media that his family said they had filed a missing persons report, but police in 2016 were not able to find it. He added, "We always looked for her alive. We never looked for Jane Doe's." After her conversation with John, Rita went to the police with her findings. On September 22nd, 2016, the authorities announced that the Griffith Park Jane Doe was indeed Cheryl McMillan, though the exact circumstances of Cheryl's death are unknown. Her relatives had long suspected that her disappearance had something to do with her involvement in drug trafficking. Ellen stated that her cousin had once confided in her that she was moving drugs between Mexican cities. Ellen added, "I just figured that somehow. While moving drugs, she got killed or captured or was sitting in a Mexican jail." John Manzo Jr., meanwhile, takes comfort in the fact that even though she likely needed the money, Cheryl never pawned their grandmother's ring. And there you have the facts. Please leave a comment down below with your own thoughts and reactions. And remember to like this video and subscribe to support the channel. Thank you for watching, stay alert, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.
And remember to like this video and subscribe to support the channel. Thank you for watching. Stay alert, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.